With Foxtel HD, enjoy your drama with up to 5 times the pixels of standard definition. Because up to 5 times the pixels means a clearer, crisper, sharper picture. Just add the HD pack to experience better.
This is Sky News Live, Australia's news channel.
Was last year a one-off, or can the Blues head into enemy territory and back up their State of Origin success? This week on Sky News, we've got you covered, no matter the result of State of Origin 3. It's a decider, with Queensland hoping to reassert its dominance, the Blues hoping their new era has actually begun. It's the same night too, the Ashes series gets underway, Australia and the old foe in the first of 5 tests. It's a special extended edition of Sports Night as soon as the siren sounds, right here on Sky News Live.
Live, this is Saturday Agenda with David Lipson.
For your company, the Prime Minister's heading to a dairy farm near Wannon in Western Victoria this morning to release the government's long-awaited Agriculture White Paper, a blueprint for the future of the $50 billion a year industry. On the program today, we'll be speaking to the Shadow Agriculture Minister, Joel Fitzgibbon, about what he hopes to see in this White Paper. But first, for a look at what we can expect, I spoke to a member of the Standing Committees on Regional Australia and Agriculture and local member for Wannon, Tehan. Tehan, thank you for your time. What does this Agriculture White Paper aim to achieve?
Well, it wants to ensure that agriculture has a bright future in this nation. It's about setting out a long-term plan for the sector to make sure it remains internationally competitive and gives our farmers their best chance to do what they do best, and that's to produce world-class products at a competitive rate and ensure that the profits that they receive go back to the farm gate so that they can continue to invest into their properties.
Yeah, a few of the details have seeped out, it seems, and it seems some of the biggest changes relate to the tax treatment that farmers receive. Starting with farm management deposits, it seems that the amount that can be put into these deposits, these accounts for the bad times when no income tax is paid, is going to double. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, what that will mean is that farmers have the ability to plan their financial futures in a way which enables them to deal with the changing weather patterns that they have to deal with as a matter of reality. So what they need is flexibility with their finances, and the government wants to ensure that our farmers have their best chance to be able to deal not only with their finances for the coming year, but for the coming decade. Because if they can ensure that they can put money away for a rainy day, when the rain does come, they can make sure that they produce productively and deliver for our nation. So we want to give them the long-term flexibility with their finances to ensure that they can be profitable, not just for 1 year, but for 5 to 10 years.
And it seems that farm businesses will be able to offset the funds in those farm management deposits against their debts. That would decrease their interest as well.
That's right. So that's putting more money back into their pockets. The government really wants to do what it can to ensure that our farmers are competitive. As you know, David, we compete with agriculture across the world. A lot of other countries subsidise their agricultural sectors. We want to make sure that what we're doing is freeing our farmers up to have the finance that they need to compete with these other countries, because in a globalised world, we need our farmers as competitive as possible, and that's what the government is hell-bent on doing with this Agricultural White Paper.
What's happening with income tax averaging? Have there been any changes recommended here?
There has been a change recommended here. I'll wait till the launch for you to be able to get across the detail of it, but this is something that farmers have also been pushing for, once again, to ensure that as the climate changes, as the seasons change, as they have to deal with some wet years, some dry years, that they have flexibility with their finances. And the government has looked at a variety of ways to try and help farmers in this regard.
Okay. What about specifically, you mentioned the climate a few times, for times of drought. Drought concessional loans, will there be additional assistance there?
There will be obviously a focus on drought. Sadly, in Queensland, New South Wales, they're still dealing with drought. So the government is hell-bent on making sure that we can help that part of Australia and those farmers deal with drought. We'll also look at other ways to help farmers prepare for drought and ensure that they can plan for dry times. So there'll be innovative ways we'll be suggesting that farmers in the future might be able to deal with drought, but also there will be money there for those farmers that are dealing with drought at the moment.
It doesn't look like there's anything in this white paper for farm production insurance. Is that your understanding, and why has that not been taken up?
Look, we'll have to wait and see the detail around that. It is something which into the future I think is a very good product that we can offer to farmers, but once again on that I just wait to see at the white paper launch what the government has to say in this area.
Okay, what about dams, water infrastructure? Will there be significant funding from the federal government for that?
This is something that the government has a real focus on, is ensuring that farmers have the water that they need to be able to produce and produce the products that they want to in the way that they want to, and not be handicapped by a lack of water. So you will see substantial funds go into improving irrigation in this nation, and this I think will be one of the key focuses of the white paper.
Okay, yeah, one of the reports this morning suggests $300 million on water agriculture. That will be welcome. But what about other areas of infrastructure, roads, rail, ports? We do see that some grain growers claim that 40% of their costs are in transport.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know, the government has really put a focus on infrastructure. The Prime Minister wants to be known as the Infrastructure Prime Minister, so you will see a focus going into road transport and ensuring that we've got the roads that we need to deliver our goods to port. You'll also see a focus on rail as well. The government understands that it's not just about farmers producing in the paddock, it's also about getting those goods to market. And given now that we operate in a global marketplace, 60% or over 60% of what we produce is exported, we have to ensure that we're efficient at getting those goods from the paddock to the port and then to overseas markets. So this will be another focus of the white paper.
Yeah, we also see reports that there'll be 5 agriculture councillors that will travel overseas to try to open up some of those markets for Australian farmers. Is that enough, and how will they help?
Yeah, a really good start, this announcement, because obviously with the free trade agreements with China, Japan and South Korea, we've opened those markets up, but we still have to make sure that there is access and that we can get access, because sometimes there's in-market problems for our exporters, and having these agricultural councillors that can deal with these issues, often it can be to do with quarantine issues. If they can be in-market helping our exporters break down those barriers, that will be a help no end in making sure that we can capitalise on those free trade agreements. So these agricultural councillors can do a outstanding job in really making sure that the free trade agreements are capitalised on.
Also, $11 million for an agriculture commissioner. We've seen this reported earlier this week. Just for those who haven't seen this, how will this commissioner help farmers?
Well, look, obviously we'll see some detail around this when the white paper is launched in an hour or so. But the main thing we want to do is ensure that there is proper competition domestically here when it comes to farmers selling on the domestic market. And one of the ways we can do that is making sure when it comes to the ACCC there is expertise and understanding when it comes to how farmers have to deal with selling their goods locally.
Okay, and just more generally, I suppose your view on the treatment of farmers. Do you think that farmers need to be treated very differently to other small business operators in cities? For example, someone that runs a milk bar who may be sort of put off by the fact that they see so many of these concessions going to farmers. Why do farmers need this additional help from the taxpayer?
Look, I think the community understands the difficult trading environment that farmers operate in when it comes to the reliability on the weather. And what the government is doing is providing flexibility for farmers. Now, you'll also notice that in the budget, this year's budget, that we've given big incentives as well for small business. So I think people understand. I know in the local area, my local area, that, a town like Wannon, where we are at the moment, the businesses here rely on our farmers. If the farmers are going well, the towns around our agricultural areas are going well as well. So they'll understand why the government is doing what it can to make our farmers profitable, because that money ultimately feeds into country towns and benefits everyone in the community. So I think people will welcome this white paper and the focus that it's giving to agriculture.
I just want to ask you a couple of quick questions before I let you go on some other matters. Firstly, reports of discussions with the United States about an expanded role for our diggers in the Middle East. Can you shed any light on that?
All I'd say, David, is we have to defeat the Daesh death cult, and we've got to do what we can and play our part in doing that. It is in our national interest to ensure that this evil organisation is defeated, and we have to play a role with the US in ensuring that that happens.
Also, just on same-sex marriage, what is your position now and on same-sex marriage and also a conscience vote?
Look, I am of the view that it is an issue that we should allow a conscience vote on, but I do believe in the traditional definition of marriage. So that has been my long-term position on this issue, and it remains my position.
And would you like to see this issue addressed sooner rather than later? It is quite a distraction for the Prime Minister at the moment.
Well, ultimately that'll be a decision for our party room, and I'm happy for us to have that discussion and that debate in the party room. This will be something obviously which will need to be considered when we return for the next parliamentary sitting fortnight in August. So we'll have to wait and see what the party room decides then and how it wants to proceed. And I think what we have to ensure is that the discussion and the debate is done and handled in a mature way. I think the Prime Minister has shown a great lead in that regard, and I think if the rest of the coalition party room can ensure that we have a very mature discussion on this issue, we'll work our way through it very sensibly.
Member for Wannon, Dan Tehan, you've got to get to the launch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, David. Pleasure.